unspoken truth. Oh, it's deeper than you. The unspoken truth of my heart. Mhm. Oh, the unspoken truth. Oh, it's deep. What's up? What's up? What's up? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to a new mini episode of Unspoken Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Denise. What's up? Hey, y'all. It's hot. It's, you know what? I can't. I be wanting to say some things, but let me stop before I get restricted, before I can even start. Man versus the world, how are you? Today's topic is Tell It Tuesday. Oh, boy. I guess what we're going to talk about is how far are you willing to go about your kids, for your kids? Is it a limit on how far are you willing to go about your kids? Now, I'm a person that always get shunned, so to speak, because of how far I'm willing to go about my kids, okay? In the end, yes, they don't necessarily belong to me. They were given to me, but in my mind, it's at all costs. Okay. So um I said all that to say that sometimes your kids can line you up for things that you wouldn't even know nothing about, be a part of, connected to if it wasn't for whatever movement they was making. Okay. As a parent, it requires a lot of strategy, patience, time to think. I think that's the advantage that we as adults have over our kids. Um, there's always something going on with me, but that's the story of my life. But um, I thought that this episode or topic would be important because I'm seeing like an increase in lack of support when it comes to the kids, but I'm hearing all about what the kids is doing. Okay. Sometimes us as adults, we focus on what the child is doing instead of trying to figure out what is rooted in. It's hard to show up for your kids when you really don't know what's going on for real. You getting bits and pieces of the story, or perhaps miscommunication. However, a lot of things occur because you jumped the gun. Okay. Um, I'm a person that come from that kind of background mindset of let's handle whatever need to be handled and we'll figure the rest of it out later. I lived like that for 20 something years. Okay. Very impulsive. The life we living in now, that kind of behavior will absolutely get you in some things, uh, possibly fatal, because people don't know how to just let words be words. So then you find yourself like trying to fight for your respect. People always scream, "Oh, my respect, I'm my respect," but in the end, you only in control of you. You can't control what nobody else say. You can't control what nobody else do. And ultimately, whatever you choose to do with whatever situation and circumstance you in, you the only one gotta pay for it. So I said all that to say, when my kids was younger, I'm the parent that would be like, hey, if there's something going on, figure out how you can solve it. Figure out how you can come up with a solution before you bring it to me. Now, some people would disagree with that, but hey, sometimes these kids they need uh, a class and what to do and how to do it. Because I'm a firm believer, it's not about what you do or what you say, it's how you say it and how you do it. That ultimately makes or break a lot of connections, relationships. When we talking about kids, um, when my kids was younger, I used to tell them things like, "Hey, you don't really got no feelings." I've talked about this before in other episodes where I wouldn't even create the space for them to be able to be vocal about what they was going through, how they was feeling, because I'm like, you a kid, you ain't got no feelings. Um, you know, that essentially taught them that their feelings didn't matter. Their feelings weren't valid and they shouldn't be heard, which is totally the opposite of what I was trying to do. But you live and you learn. Okay. Today, a space absolutely has to be created because now they grown, where they need to say how they feel without being shunned or being told what you got to say. I don't want to hear it. Because that's essentially what I was telling and teaching them when I was telling them they ain't got no feelings. Now, what happens over time with a child who is not vocal, who don't have a voice, what happens is there is a buildup that takes place internally where there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of lashing out, um, the inability to be able to articulate yourself, meaning I know how I feel, but I don't know how to express that. I totally understand that because I was like that for many years. Like I had stuff to say, but I didn't feel like nobody was listening, so I wouldn't. I would just hold it in. I now know as a grown woman, all I did was fill up this pot with all this combustion, this 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 air, this gas, these fumes that I'm carrying around about my feelings. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, you should validate yourself as far as your feelings, but there also has to be a boundary even drawn for that because if you spend too much time in your feelings, you bound to make some bad decisions. Okay. Feelings are temporary. Let me just say that, not just for me, but everybody. They don't last very long. So when you making decisions based off of a temporary feeling, it's very self-destructive. Now, some kids have chosen to make certain decisions trying to get their parents' attention. I was one of those kids too growing up. Well, I think if I do this, then they'll hear me. If I do that or say this, then they'll listen. Um, it didn't really work out that way. Okay. Derek, how are you? The true Leo, Dwayne Jones, Treese, I seen you in here, cuz. What's up? D, Nova, Ronnie, Big Dog, Anita, Irene. Happy Tuesday to y'all, man. Terrence, Sammy, Matt. Um, Sometimes our kids got a bunch of stuff built up, frustration, and they done held on to it for so long that it just come out. And it don't come out in a positive way, it come out in a negative way. Hence, kids' behaviors, outbursts, um, putting themselves in chaotic drama situations. And you like as a parent, like, what is wrong with this kid? What I had to learn is sometimes as an adult and a parent, you have to take yourself outside of the age and the title and all the fluff that come with being a parent so that you can put yourself in your kid's shoes. What do I mean by that? You need to remember some things because some of us as adults we expecting these kids to have the same mindset as us, and it just don't work that way. double R, how are you? Don Harris, how you doing? It don't just work like that. I feel like us as adults, we've gotten to a place based off of decisions, circumstances and lessons that allow us to be able to see things differently than when we was a kid. Which, you a lot of us want our kids to skip that process, and you can't. You just can't. You ultimately, as a parent, have to wait until your child reach a certain level of maturity where you can have conversations that will allow things to be balanced. um when I say balanced, I don't want nobody to get misconstrued, because people would be like, well, your kid ain't your friend. No, they not your friend, but at the same time, they are human beings and individuals, and they absolutely deserve to be heard and seen and supported as such. So, when I say balance, I'm saying when it comes to whatever circumstance is happening. Because I mean, I had multiple kids. It was always something going on. I sometimes felt like I was stretching myself thin because I'm trying to help one kid with whatever they got going on. Then I got another kid that's got stuff going on. And then I got one kid that's like, hey, man, you forgot about me. I don't feel like you even acknowledged me or took no time out to spend time with me or pour into me. And that was hard to hear because as a single mom, I'm busy out here trying to make sure I'm covering all the bases, and sometimes you fall short. Um, I didn't know that for years, but once I realized it for myself, it's like, okay, well, I need to improve with this particular child. Not to say that my other kids didn't need nothing from me, but I'm only one person. I used to just take on too much. That was my biggest problem, and it's still something I struggle with today. Trying to show up for everybody. What that does is, even your kids, is drain you mentally, emotionally, physically. Now you like, well, when the day is over, I ain't got nothing left in my tank for me. So now how am I supposed to show up as the best version of myself as a mother if I'm deficient? I'm I'm pouring out, but nobody's pouring in. I'm showing up, but I'm nobody's reciprocating that. That's tough. Sometimes that'll make you frustrated where you be like, what I'm even doing any of this for? Okay, there's been moments where I'm like, what am I even doing any of this for? But I had to withdraw saying that because I realized it's bigger than me. I know what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it so that my kids don't have to feel like I did growing up, where yes, things was getting paid for and taken care of, bills and materialistic stuff, but it was the emotional or mental piece that I was missing. I think has created this force within me where it's like, no, I don't care what I gotta do, long as I don't have to ever hear my kids say that. Well, you weren't there for me. You didn't support me. You didn't show up for me. You ain't love me enough. You ain't care. I wasn't important enough. And I get it, because some parents says you have to, you gotta do what you gotta do in order to stay afloat, survive, keep a roof over your head, keep food on the table, clothes on their back. But you also still have to show up in other areas of their life. You have to pour into them emotionally. You have to be willing to listen. You have to pour into them mentally, because that is the center to their whole existence. Their body, their emotions, they brain is what's controlling the body. Okay, you have to be teaching them. No, I'm not talking about the stuff that you wouldn't want them to be doing, No, you need to be teaching them how to survive. What do I mean by that? Why would you just teach your kid how to cook and not to fish? Now, my kids is a little more advanced than me. I don't know how to fish, but I recognize the symbolic meaning behind knowing how to be able to fend for yourself. Sounds a whole lot better than, oh, just go in the kitchen and whip something up. If all of us had to return back to nature, where there's no microwave, there's no stove, no refrigerator, no place to store your food, but you had to go out and hunt and get your own, how many of us will actually survive? That's what I mean by pouring into your child. Don't just teach them how to combat negativity and drama, um, to have a rebuttal when somebody say something to them. Don't just teach them just those fundamentals. Teach them how to actually survive in this life. Do you know how many young people don't know how to tie a knot? Yeah, I said it, a knot. You out camping and a tent need to be put up and it requires for you to knot it around the post. Do you know how many kids don't know how to tie a knot that will not come apart? Do you know that there are a bunch of kids that don't know how to use tools, can't even tell you what they called or what they used for? Do you know that there are tons of kids that can't start a fire? If necessary, for example, if we had a blackout, and we've had one since my kid's been alive, we've had one. What happens when the electricity is down and you need to eat? Do you know how to open the can without an electric can opener or the handheld? Some people, I mean, we didn't got so comfortable with technology. It's a lot of people don't even have the standard version of things in case they can't use electricity. These are the things that I feel like we need to get back to teaching to our kids so that they well rounded and equipped to do whatever is required for them in this life. It may not always be this way. Just like those of us that's a significant age have been through some things, have been here a little while, we can all relate. Things ain't what they used to be, and they'll never be like that again. But that don't mean that we don't need to equip our kids with the fundamentals that's necessary in order for them to fend for themselves. God forbid, these right now we in a crisis on food, on water, on power, because the grids have been excessively stretched past capacity. What happens when all of those entities end? Is your kid gonna be able to survive? Because yes, it's important for them to be poured into mentally, emotionally, physically, and supported as such. But what about the things that's outside of those teachings? See, when I was growing up, we had classes for that. Home economics is what it was called. I don't know what other people called it in different states or places, but I think that that needs to return back to school. I learned a lot in that class. You would have thought it was my favorite. I learned how to sew. I learned how to use tools. I learned how to cook. I learned how to put stuff together, take stuff apart. It forced me to use my brain. I think that a lot of our youth, they've gotten so used to social media, computers, cell phones, but they don't know how to do nothing with their hands for real. Some things should be like second nature. Like, for example, riding a bike. You don't forget that. I don't care how old you get. I don't care how long it's been since you've been on it. Once you learn certain things, it's embedded in you. The problem is when you're not using it on a regular basis, what happens? Just like anything else, whatever you don't use, you lose. So I said all that to say, we can't keep harping upon the choices and decisions that these kids and the youth is out here making before we discuss the part that the adults is playing or not playing in it. Because kids don't just be born doing a whole bunch of craziness. That we know that that's not truth. A lot of the things that kids end up doing, choosing, it's the stuff they've been, susceptible to. Their environments, their households, schooling, the neighborhood. It's many entities as to how a kid got from I'm here, I'm born, everything I learned was taught to I'm self-destructing. That's a huge gap in between that. So I want us to start being more compassionate, more understanding. Take more time out to talk to your kids, man. Find out what's going on in their head. Stop just assuming that they okay. Never think that because they a certain age they don't need you. Because your kids gonna need you until they no longer have that as an option. So the saying from the cradle to the grave is very much real. Okay, most people, and I don't want to say most, but some people don't start straightening up their life until they lose a parent. Don't start thinking about doing nothing different until a parent is absent. Then they start thinking about all the stuff they shoulda, woulda, coulda did. Because even us as adults is still somebody's kid. Okay? Let's start normalizing. Stop telling people, you act like a kid. When there is still a kid-like personality that rests inside of this body as a grown-up. So if there's a day where you wake up and you say, you know what, I just want to be young again for today, and all I want to do is childlike things for the entire day, okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Honestly, that's you catering to your inner child. Because you grew up, because you got taller, because you gained some weight, because you had some kids, because none of that takes away from that inner child living within, man. Some of us can't show up for our kids because we can't show up for ourselves. I'm sorry, that might have struck a nerve, but I mean, I'm not just saying that to you, I'm saying it to me too. Miracle Hands, how are you? Happy Tuesday. But we don't have to take better care of our youth, especially if they're going to be responsible for taking care of us when it's all said and done. Do we really want some mentally and emotionally disturbed young people taking care of us? Do we really want our life to be in their hands? These are some things that we need to be addressing and thinking about before we just clearly just out them as being bad seeds, or they They can't seem to do nothing right. They we can't keep saying that, because some of these kids have been through so many things that half of us as adults couldn't fathom. We couldn't handle it. We couldn't live through it. And so that deserves to be acknowledged as far as what that particular kid is choosing to do versus what they can be doing. Have you given them an option? Have you even heard them out to know what the problem is for you to give them the best advice to your ability as their parent? I can tell you that that's almost impossible for a person who has not resonated, tapped in, and understood themselves as a child, as a kid. It's going to be hard for you to understand your kid. But I think if we took the time out to just hear these young people out, man. Hear them out. I was also a parent who kids talked to everybody else about what they was going through. Maybe they didn't come to me first. And that was hurtful. But I also understand. I was too wrapped up in my own trauma and my own pain that I didn't even realize that my kids was asking for help. Was expecting to be heard and seen. And I just could not show up in that way for them at the time. Is why they decided to speak with other people about what they was going through. Because as a young person, you don't realize that everybody can't be told your business. I'm just trying to vent. I'm a kid. I have no idea that this person is about to blast everything that I said to the entire world or anybody who will listen. I'm just trying to get it off my chest. You have to be careful. You better off creating an environment for your kids to be able to say what's necessary so you can show up for them the way that they need to be showed up for. That's how you're going to alleviate them speaking about what's going on with you and your household or whatever the situation is with other people who clearly don't care. They just want something to discuss. Be careful. Teach your kids that, hey, if you can't go nowhere else, you can come to me. And if you're not comfortable with coming to me, then you need to go to the next person that you can trust. But I can almost guarantee you 75 to 80% of the kids that's out here disturbed, considered a menace, a bad seed, or whatever society in the world can deem them as, I can almost guarantee that those kids are just hurt. Most people, when you hurt, they want somebody else to be hurt too. So then they issue out the same hurt that somebody issued to them, which is extremely selfish, but it's human nature. It's true. Hurt people will hurt people. And just because a person is a kid or an adolescent does not remove that. So I don't know who needed just to hear what I had to say today. As a parent, I see a lot of wonderful parents out here doing the best they can. I just want you to know I see you. Keep going. Yes, parenting is hard and testing at times, but there is a reward at the end. okay, of seeing your child grow and prosper and be successful in life. Knowing that they just not here just by chance. They here because they have a purpose to serve and follow through with. Okay. Um, it takes a village. We all know that. It's a lot of kids that don't even have one person. So how they gonna have a village? So we need to be more, more loving, more compassionate, more understanding, and absolutely we need to show up more for the youth. Stop condemning them. Stop tearing them down. Stop telling them how bad they is. Stop telling them about um, the choices that they making. Oh, I wouldn't be doing that. You not in a situation. Start talking to these kids, asking them what's going on with you. And you'd be surprised how many things they say. It will blow your mind. You like, wow, I had no idea you was dealing with that. And here it is. The only thing we focused on as adults and parents is the behavior or the lashing out or the acting up or the fighting or the aggression. But we ain't stopped and thought about what's underneath that, what is rooted in. Because I'm a person who realized that most people who angry, they not really angry, they hurt. And sometimes hurt translates into anger, especially with kids, because I don't know what to do with all these feelings anyway. But I just have a very special place in my heart for kids, youth, young people, because I once was them. And I see the pain. I've worked in the school setting. I've seen the hurt. I've seen the struggle. I've seen the despair, the lack of support. I've seen it. So I just, today was just to get that off my chest. I want to dedicate this episode to the young man who lost his life at the marina this past weekend, a 6-year-old. Okay. I want to dedicate this episode to him and his family. And, may God be with them during this time. I don't know what it's like to lose a child, and I hope to God I never have to. Um, but that was something that I absolutely didn't expect to witness, but I did. And so my heart goes out to the mother, the family, the kids that the little boy was with. All of their lives is going to change. It's never going to be the same again after that. So I hope somebody got something from today's episode. Tuesdays are a mini episode, a half hour. So if you was on your lunch break, it's time for you to get back to work. If you missed the episode, let me put it in my comments so that y'all can follow me. Follow me on YouTube. And Instagram. I really need y'all to run my followers up over there because I can't go live over there no more. I don't have enough followers. So if you could, please go follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook and YouTube is where you can run back the episode and watch older episodes. So I'm just letting y'all know that right now. Okay, now let me pin it. 60 seconds. It'll be pinned in the comments. Make sure y'all go follow me. YouTube, Unspoken Truth 729. Facebook, Tanise Johnson. Instagram, unspoken_truth_40. Go follow me, man. More importantly, on Instagram and YouTube over Facebook, because I've ran my numbers up over there. Okay. There is now over 6,000 people following me on Facebook, which is a huge win for me. Okay. I went from 700 something friends to over 6,000. So I know that it's possible on my other platforms. It's hot out today, 90 some degrees, they say today. Stay hydrated. Keep a hat on your head. The sun will exhaust and drain you. Be safe out here today. I want y'all to meet me back here Friday at 8 p.m. We're going to talk about colorism. I got a guest. It's for sure going to be a good conversation. You don't want to miss it, but make sure y'all meet me here Friday, 8 p.m. for a new episode on colorism. That's it for me, y'all. I'm out of here. Y'all be cool. Try to stay cool. It's gonna be warm today. I love y'all. I appreciate everybody that tapped in, chimed in. I'll see y'all Friday. I'm out of here. Let me give y'all some music on my way out the door. Mr. No Fork, what's up, friend? I love to have you on the show. Talk to us about Cleveland Food Festival. Black Cleveland, I think it's called. That you're doing. I'd love to have you on the show so you can talk to us about your restaurant. I'm gonna message you, though. I'm out of here, y'all.